right. So I call this meeting
There you go.
Operations Committee to order.
Yeah, it is, thank you.
Okay. Take it in here. Glass, we're down. All right, we would all stand for the pledge, please. Pledge. Oh, wait, thank you, sir. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda.
Move we approve the agenda.
Oh, second, I looked at Will Williams. Yes, yeah,
Discussion 3-0. Public comments, do we have any?
Do we have any public comments?
No.
Okay. No public comments.
Approval of the January 29th minutes.
Move we approve the January 29th. Well, it says 2019. Calendar.
Correction.
Yeah.
Make that correction.
Yeah. If we correct the date, move that we accept.
Any highlights? In the highlights, we also said that we were that we were going to go to the school after we get done. That we were going to go to the schools after we get done with the surveys, and it doesn't reflect that.
What we reported to do with the townhouse?
Yeah. No.
We had that in the community meetings.
After that, yeah, he's added it. I'll second
The second with that correction.
it. That correction, so.
Okay. In favor? 3-0. Okay, we start with human resources. First thing on the agenda, and I just threw everything on there that was a loose end or a suggestion. So, P5B4, which was grievances, which we did not forward to the full board because there were corrections to the process that we thought should be made, I believe.
So I believe that the board, the committee asked us to go back and look at a way to track grievances so that we can keep up with them, starting at school level to run up to the district level. And we have discovered that we have a module in our existing software that we can use to keep track of such grievances. So we have 3 different levels, and the purpose of the grievance policy is to keep the grievances at the lowest level possible for resolution. So it begins at the school with the immediate supervisor, and then if the grievant believes that it wasn't solved at that level, then it can be moved to the district level. And I believe the gap was, if the grievances stopped at the school level, they didn't get to this level. Only the grievances that came to the HR level were the ones that we were keeping track of. So we can put in place a system that when an employee files a grievance, it can be put in our system. We are notified in HR when it's done. we can keep track in terms of dates to make sure it's done timely, we can notify, or we will be notified if it was handled properly, and then we can also see the response to the grievance in that system. So that would give us the opportunity to, any employee that says my grievance wasn't handled, we could verify at this level, because it would actually come to this level, even though we didn't handle it at this level. And we already have it in place, we have a system, so it would not cost us any money. We just have to train the school level employees to keep track of those grievances.
So when could that be implemented?
We could, almost immediately, but we would have to train the people at the school.
How long would it take to train?
Probably about a month to get all of it. First of all, we would have to decide who at the school level the principal would designate as a grievance keeper, because that's high confidentiality, and they would only be given access to that grievance portal, because it can't be open to everybody, so it'd be that one person. That would be the person that would be trained.
John?
I would just like to ask, we're making a video of this, the microphone's way over there. Please, if you're gonna speak, speak loud enough for the audio. It's like watching a silent movie otherwise.
Okay, we'll speak up a little bit loud. I'm not speaking up loud enough. So then my question is, once we do that, when we report out on this PE next year, we could actually report out on district-wide grievances, school-level grievances, how many, and we can track it by school, if that's what you want us to do. If we would add anything to the PE, it would be another bullet that says track grievances at each level, by each site, and report by numbers.
I'm pretty clear, I'm pretty sure that's what we want. And the question is, there's no grievance then that would escape capture in this
In the
database.
system, that's
There's
correct.
no level that wouldn't be
No
in
level
there.
that would be
And they would, and the grievance would get a response to, that their grievance was received, and we would know they got a response.
That's correct.
Because that was one of the issues,
That's correct.
so they would get a response, and the district would make sure they got a response.
It would be in the
All due
system.
respect, David, I want to hear her say that, and I want to see that in black and white. I understand that you're trying to mediate, but I like to see it in black and white and know that.
I'm not trying to mediate, I'm asking the questions I know we're asking.
Okay.
That are of importance to us.
Because I just these grievances are very serious business, and I've had, I've been contacted about these grievances within the past myself. So how like this basically see in writing what exactly what exactly system we have, what is taking place, what's the performance of this program. Basically the same way how when I have a certain mail that the certain district have sent me, it says written receipt on it, and also that the grievances can be done online, and they can be typed in and sent in. That we are up to date on that, and also according to even my current situation, I think the board, I'm in certain districts, I even hear board members hearing grievances, and I don't remember us hearing any grievances that have came to the board. That's a concern as well, because I know people have told me that they have also tried to possibly even contact board members on those things. So I just want to make sure that we're crystal clear, and that we have all the steps laid out. There's no guessing, that we have it in writing, and that we know exactly on the website that the information is there, and that it can be accessible, and exactly how I stated is how it's being done. So that is my question. And also, all grievances are potential could be potential litigations. I think the board should know on a monthly update about how many grievances were filed, because when we continuously talk about giving these bonuses, if we got tons of grievances, we give out bonuses in the world, but it's the bonuses ain't gonna solve it. There's other underlying issues that we need to look into. So
I heard a couple of different issues in there.
Right.
One is the tracking
other grievances.
process, you want that written up.
Right. Yes, sir.
So that comes with part of the training. If we're gonna changed the tracking process. All employees have to be informed
Right.
of that tracking process.
Right.
So when we talk about one person in the building handling this,
Uh,
they would get the training, then we would drop down and get this in writing to all employees. So if you're gonna file a grievance, this would be attached to the grievance form that's online already. So if they go in and pull up a grievance form, the directions will be attached. So here's the first step, here's the second step, here's the third step. And that comes in with the system. Now, you did say it's trackable online and you pull it up online,
Right.
that can't happen.
Well, no, I don't think he asked for tracking, I think he asked for, to enter it online, right?
But that's
Isn't that
part
what
of the
you asked?
process.
So it could be entered online?
Right, yeah, no, enter, it should be tracked that way, whereas in, yeah, when I say track, let me explain what I mean by track. As in, once I put the grievance in, the time and date, who it arrived to.
That's correct, that will happen.
Right, that's what I mean track,
That way.
because from my understanding, none of the other grievances or that I talked about possibly could be tracked because they were all paper, and who's to say
That's
whether
right.
you got them or whether you didn't get them.
Yeah.
Right.
It will be done in our current system.
Right. Right.
And we will train someone to make sure that that gets in the system, and once the grievance is filed, we will be notified at this level. Once it's resolved, we will be notified at this level. If it's not resolved within the time frame, we will be notified.
Okay, yeah, that's, yeah. But you haven't in writing over here yet.
No, because I will bring it back to you so that
Okay.
you all can tell me to go forward with it, the
Okay.
suggestions.
Okay.
Okay, and tracking of the grievances is the PE, right? So you want the board updated each month.
Right.
Change that PE to be a monthly report,
Right.
right?
Okay.
That's how we could
Right.
take care of that.
Right.
So that's something the board needs to do. I think we all agree that we want you to do what you've said. It sounds like you do it. The other thing that you mentioned, I want to make sure we don't forget it, is employees bringing grievances to the board, and I don't know how that works. Do we have a policy on that?
No, we don't.
The way,
Um,
I believe the board, the current policy or regulation says that the final decision stops with the superintendent.
Yes.
I don't think there's anything in writing that says it comes to the board.
No.
Yeah, and and
Well, that's
we'll once that
yeah,
change.
yeah, that needs to be changed. The final writing does not need to stop with the superintendent, because when those lawsuits come in, they don't come in the superintendent's name. They come in board members' name, they come to the Board of Education. And anytime, then that's saying that we won't hear employees beyond the superintendent, and that's not right. I mean, that's no due process.
But that's a board thing. That's
Right,
not-
right. I mean, and I just want it all to be laid out,
Right.
because now that we're talking about grievances.
I just want to make sure we're
Right.
covering
Right.
everything that you got. So that's something we should bring up when we review board policies at the work session.
Yeah,
That would be the place to bring that part up.
yeah.
But the other part,
And
We're
I-
okay with it.
that's- I'm okay.
And actually, I was never aware, for the record, I was never aware that this board, that grievances could not come to the board.
It's always in ARs. It's always been in ARs. Yeah. It's not new, it's not something that we determine in HR.
Right.
It's always been in HR.
Right,
in ARs.
right, I mean, I understand it's an AR, but I'm just not aware that basically that the board had cut the staff off, they said that after superintendent, that we don't get involved, no, I mean, I just find that to be mortifying, especially with me having a grievance, I mean, with, me having grievances, and I just, and we handle those, I just think that we would wanna handle those other grievances as well, so, yeah.
do that when we cover board policies.
Yeah.
So how long will it be before we have a write-up for Will?
I'm gonna try to get it done within the next month.
Good? You good with that?
Fine with that.
Yes, sir. Okay. So what do we do with the PE? Which really reports, the PE is reporting on what you did last year.
Yes,
Is
this
that right?
PE is reporting on
This
last
is
year.
the PE that reports on what happened last year with grievances. We fixed the problems, but do we hold the PE up?
I won't say we all hold PE up, but, so if we approve this P, then this P will go to the next board meeting about last year.
Right.
And then the next PE
We
for next year.
approve the PE, we're not approving, we're not condoning an AR, we're not approving a policy. We're just saying that what happened last year
Right.
supported the existing board policy,
That's correct.
which is the buck stops at the superintendent's office.
Right. Right, we're just accepting the report, we're not
Right.
approving, we're just
Not-
accepting it.
Not commenting on it, just accepting it, that it supports the policy.
Right, you brought up valid points on the process that we're gonna get
There's
fixed.
no sense in having a work discussion here today,
Right.
work session discussion here today.
Exactly. So what are we gonna do at the PE? Are we gonna move it forward to the board and suggest acceptance?
Do you want to, well,
John, it's just a one-pager.
That's the one page, that's the one page.
the only thing
Is that one?
is, I understand what we're doing, but we still haven't seen anything to judge whether we should accept this or not, so I would put it on hold until we see something.
So does that mean I need to go, I can't go back and redo this with the new process, because we haven't started the new process. So I would bring back the same report, because this is from the previous year. And the reporting out for every month was not a part of the requirements for this PE for the following year. So I don't see how I could update this.
I see. Well, making the best of a bad situation, we should probably accept it, not move that we accept it.
I'll accept that.
We're gonna move it forward to the full board, recommend acceptance. Employee initiatives, I'm not sure what this is. It's yours.
Well, the last time we talked about this, I had lots of great ideas. And I took it back, rethought about it, and brought back something to let you know. I'm gonna request you to, and I know you can't do anything in this committee, but to look at the locality supplements for both administrators and classified staff, as well as teachers. When we brought it before, I requested $7,000 for teachers and no addition for administrators and classified staff. But this time I'm dropping it down to $6,000 per teacher and additional $500 for administrators and classified staff. That's the first. The second initiative was to make whole the teacher's salary schedule. Instead of going and spreading it out to 28 years this year, because we're still uncertain about the raise that's coming down from the state, and then there's some salaries that they have to have anyway. I'm asking that you make that year whole, and it's an additional cost of $1.9 million to make that one step whole from the year 2011-12, that the teachers lost a step. So currently, our teachers are at experience 0 and experience 1. It's the same salary.
And you're asking us to have a step there,
Yes.
and that costs.
$1.9 million. Plus, you would add another $1.9 million on top of that for the mandated step that's gonna come down from the state anyway. So you're really looking at almost $4 million. It's just something to consider. I'm advocating for that step to be made.
Yeah, that was tough that year, that was. And so what do you expect the outcome to be from this? How do you see that this expenditure of 1.9 would benefit?
In terms of teachers, retention, it's just that we say to teachers, because most districts about 85% of the districts around the state has gone back and made that step up, and we have not. So it just proves that we care about teachers, and even though we can't get their salary to $80,000 at the end of the year, we can at least keep up with the state mandated steps.
And so for our most vulnerable teachers, are ones that are just starting and
Just
trying to make a
starting, the first
decision
5
that
years.
right, this would benefit them.
Yes. So when we have a teacher with 0 years of experience, and they go into their second year experience, they actually make less money that second year because they're making the same salary. Benefits have gone up, cost of living has gone up, but their salary hasn't.
I just thought it was important that you share, exactly, you're asking 1.9 million to what end? What do you see as HR director it would benefit? How would it benefit?
So you've got your run rehearsed fairly well through this committee. I don't think anybody here is gonna argue with that, but especially in light of the fact that we're sitting here in isolation, we don't know the rest of the budget. So thank you for letting us know that's something you're gonna push for. And that was one of the things we were supposed to do, is look at budget impacts for the coming years. So appreciate that. ARSS suicide awareness, this one's been here for a long time. I know that Wendy's not here to talk about it, but she led me to believe that the only change was that she put a site in there to, oh, you're gonna,
Well, no, I mean, I'm in the same boat you are. I talked to her briefly about this, and she said kind of the main thing was the references that were added, and we see some other strike-throughs, so, that's all I was
Yeah.
really, said it was quite minor.
She added those things at the bottom of the stuff.
Where you're talking about the board policies.
that's right.
Right, and
Links
the
to
reference.
policies, so. It's not,
So we didn't
Substantive
change, right,
change.
there was no substitute, she just made the corrections and then added the references and stuff that we asked her to do last time.
and this, these are for the board's awareness, so.
So I did text Wendy to see if she'd give me, she said just that the references were added and the AR needs to be presented to the BOE. We discussed the AR at prior operations committee meeting. Just let her know if you have any questions or comments.
Good, well, I'm good with that.
Are you voting for approval or
We don't vote on the AR.
Question, Robert.
Yes, sir.
Section 3, when a student is identified by the staff person as potentially suicidal, is that any staff person?
Yes, I would say that is definitely true.
All right, so is the assumption there that everybody's going to get training on how to recognize the signs?
We do, this may be more for Alice than me, but I believe all staff members are trained at least through
At
safe
least safe
school.
schools, and then the social workers and the counselors drop down within their buildings to train on recognizable symbols.
Any staff member should report to a superior if they have any concern, at whatever level they're at.
And all crisis prevention teams within the building are identified to all staff in the building.
Section 4, number 4. If appropriate, staff will immediately request a mental health assessment for the youth. Okay, define appropriate for me, please.
Well, that would probably come from a counselor. I mean, that would come from someone trained in.
Isn't that first and foremost a parental decision?
No, not, the parent is notified. Alice, help me here.
Which one are you?
Number 4.
Section 4, number 4.
So a parent is notified, and the parent is notified to take, that it's a recommendation to take them to mental health counseling. So yes, to answer your question, yes, parent is first.
Yeah.
If the parent is not available, they can make the suggestion to law enforcement to have them transported to mental health. So yes, parent first, but without parent, it can still go forward.
Okay.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Maybe you should state that. Okay. So the appropriate is really if parents can't not be reached, right?
Well, the next line down does say they will contact the student's parent or guardian. But it doesn't say what happens if they are not reached. So I guess that's your point there, is maybe the line 5 we add, because it just says as described in parent notification. We probably need to give more information about what's in the parent notification. Does that sound
Talking
correct?
about 7?
Or just ask parents.
School engaged.
I'm talking about 4.5.
I mean, 7,
Oh, flip it over, okay.
parental notification.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of already there.
Also on section 3, what if it occur after school and these resources are not available?
And the child is on campus,
Yes, ma'am.
then I think that would be the time you would call law enforcement. If there should be adults there, because no kid should be on campus.
Right, but I'm just saying, what if the resources, like guys, the people who recognize it and who understand it, if they are not there, then what will be done?
I think
Well,
that would be the law enforcement piece.
Well, and also, what I'd say, if it's severe enough, they call the crisis team at any time, any hour.
They can, but the crisis team might not be able to get there immediately, so you need immediate help. That would be a 911 call.
Why would they take them to the hospital?
Evaluation.
Why wouldn't they take them to the
Yeah, why
hospital?
wouldn't they?
Right, so it's
It would be a
suicide.
911.
Why wouldn't they take them to the hospital? You know.
Parents can object.
Mhm.
I know the parents can reject the request for mental health services.
Right.
Well, the
And some
difference,
do.
the way I read this is number 3 is when a student is identified as at risk, possibly, maybe, and 4 is they actually tried to hurt themselves. Is that correct?
In the school. In the school.
And then go on to 6 is out of school attempts.
That's it.
Yeah. All right. Certainly present that to the full board. Well, I'm sure there might be some questions coming from the full board too. The next agenda item is actually mine, which is the performance expectations review and revisit. We looked at it once already and said that the PEs were valid. but, you know, are they derived? I don't think we can do that today, so I'm gonna suggest that we postpone that. And the thought was that the performance expectations should be derived from the strategic plan. I'm not sure if they are, I haven't looked at them. I know we said, you know, they're good PEs, but with this new, when we go over the governance in the work session, it become a little more obvious graphically that the PEs come down from the mission, beliefs, strategic plan, the results, and performance expectations, but they should be coming out of the strategic plan. They shouldn't be coming this way. And I don't think we've ever looked at that.
And right now, all the PEs are really subject to change because
Right.
ad hoc policy committee is going to
Right.
deliver to the board a recommendation around policy. So what appears to be supportive of a policy now might not be supportive of a policy in 3 or 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Right.
So, I
Well, yeah, and the thing that is coming out of the policy is these should be coming out of the strategic plan, not our policies. They are policies, and they should come out of the strategic
right,
plan.
but you don't, we don't
We didn't have that
create
wisdom.
PE
Right, we didn't
and
have that
then
wisdom.
do the policy afterwards.
Right. So we'll move on past that. I just wanted to say that, you know, we have a new understanding of where the PE should be coming from. Okay, now we can move on to the operating. We have in our folder the PEs. The operations part of the meeting. Draft contract review, I gotta tell you, the boilerplate, so I'm not sure how much input we would really have to.
Well, the purpose is to get them in front of you prior to the next board meeting, because these contracts will come up for review on specific contractors at the next board meeting. So the two that you have that are gonna come in front of you, A133 is the contract for the CM at risk contract. And the next board meeting, we will be bringing forward, we already have, I'm sorry, at the last board meeting, we brought forward 4 suggestions of contractors, which you approved for us to go issue a notice of intent to award. That has been noticed. At the next board meeting, we will bring the actual contracts. Those contracts will be versions of this with the name and numbers filled in. So if you look at some of the green spots where you have blanks, those are areas that information on the specific contractors, such as that first one, will be the name and the address of the contractor coming forward. So my intent here is to put this in front of you, so you have the opportunity to look at it before the executive committee and the specific contract come forward. And if you have any questions today, I'll gladly ask that. The next one is C171. This is for the program manager. This is the firm that, again, at the last board meeting, we brought forward. You approved the notice of intent to award. We have gone forward with that. We're in the process of finishing up contract negotiations, and a final version of this will be brought to the next board meeting. So this is your opportunity to kind of look it over, and feel free, if along the way you have questions, let me know if there's anything I can help you with.
My suggestion would be you send the boilerplates to the full board.
They're published online now.
Okay, let them know.
Yeah.
Send an email out, say the boilerplates are
I'll
out
put it in
there.
Word docs and say that they're out.
So that
Yep,
they have the boilerplates ahead of time.
they're in the operations committee now.
Any boilerplates,
These 2 contracts that he's talking about, that would be my suggestion.
right, are any of these contracts, any of these contractors from South Carolina?
Yes, as far as the CM at risk, just know, or I'm sorry, the A133, just know we cannot have locality be part of the selection, so that is not something we can consider. But it just so happens that all 4 of them are South Carolina firms. The program management, same thing. We're not allowed to have that be a part of the contract selection. But that being said, it is
Could you
a,
elaborate on that?
the state procurement code from the state engineer's office does not let us use the locality of the contractor as part of the selection of that contractor. It's against the state engineer's office procurement code.
Okay.
We can use it if it's ever in a tie. If there is a tie between two firms, the location of the firm can be a tiebreaker. That is the one time we can use it.
Okay. And are any of these contractors minorities? As in, well, but let me African American owners. Any of these?
So let me answer can I finish the first question on program manager? This firm that we're bringing forward is a national firm that does have offices in South Carolina. As far as none of these firms are completely minority owned.
Point of order, but, yeah, I think.
I don't
We're
think we
getting
should
off.
be discussing
Okay.
this here.
Why did I
We're
mean, I
talking
just-
about the process, a boilerplate draft of a contract, and I don't think we should be discussing applicant-specific information.
And we already approved these contracts. Did the board not approve them already?
You have approved us to negotiate contracts.
So,
Okay. I'm just.
yeah, I hear you. All right, the next one is the review of school boundaries and the CIP.
All right, so this is about the book. We brought this to you on December 11th, and you've had it now for a little while, so the thought there was to get it in front of you and then come back and present in detail, and so we could answer any questions that you could have. I do have to say Carol Crutchfield was going to present, and she had a family emergency and is unable to be with us today, so I'm a backup plan B, so I apologize for that. What she highlighted in this presentation, if you go back up. Yeah. So, well, let's start with the table of content and what's new and what's inside. I'm sorry, go to the next page. Yeah, go down. I know, maybe I can see it with my ears. So, everywhere you see a red star is an area that's been added, so we completely added the program section. We used to have this years ago. We took it out, we put it back in, and some of the thought on that is when Carol loves this as far as in planning, it's a balance of demographic programs and facilities, so thought it was really, we need to bring that section back. And if you look in there, the content specialists in these areas wrote kind of a summary of those programs and what's involved and why they're in the district. Look at that. I know, look at that. You can teach an old dog new tricks. So in the demographics section, what has been added here? Going through the CPRC, we went through an in-depth report with the town of Bluffton about growth in Bluffton. So we've included a lot of the information in the demographics section from the town of Bluffton regarding the growth in Bluffton and kind of what they're experiencing and what they're seeing. So that's a section that's been added.
Robert,
Yes, sir.
back, please. Okay. Does that incorporate the demographers?
So I'll skip it.
Or is it a,
Now I messed up. Touch out? Okay. Actually, I was gonna go, I'll skip a couple sections here just to show you that we did add a section about the demographer's report and what his findings were and kind of what the differences were between his report and our report.
so you did not use the demographers' numbers to come up with these population projections? Is that what you're saying?
No, we use our own numbers, that is correct. So,
I believe it was the will of the board that we go forward with demographers' numbers as of last spring anyway.
for the referendum, that is correct, and that is what we did.
For the referendum?
Yes.
I never recall that particular phrase being part of the conversation.
So So are you asking us not to do a 10-year plan anymore? Is that what the board is saying? Is that the district should no longer produce a 10-year plan?
I don't think that's not what
He's
he
saying there's
said.
a crack.
That's right.
If you use
Yeah, that's not what he said.
one demographer for the referendum and a different,
He did just a short segment, and that's why we've included his information in our book. So we made sure that the information he provided is available in our 10-year plan. So that's how we covered that. We'll go back. And if, I guess as we're jumping to that, so as far as the demographer's report and what you're gonna find there is that we did kind of a comparison between what we found and what they found and what he found. And for the most part, it's kind of like microeconomics and macroeconomics. The demographer was way better at the district as a whole. So his numbers were, for the entire district, he was only off by, I think, 20 or 40, where I think we were off by 80 or something like that students. So he was off by 20, by 40, so by a substantial
Another way to put
factor.
it in management terms would be you massaged the numbers.
No, sir. What I would say, if you go on the microeconomic level and you look by district or by school, our numbers were far better. And actually, one of the issues with the demographer study was he showed no growth in Bluffton, where we had 300 students that came this year. So he missed that mark pretty substantially. And he also showed more growth in the Port Royal area than actually happened. It was lower. So, and he would tell you that there, and that's why we do the comparison. He is looking more macroeconomically at the entire district, and that's the way that he does his numbers. When you get down and we're looking at each individual school and what's happening, and we go down to every neighborhood and we're looking down to each neighborhood where growth is and compiling that to come up with a projection for the school. So when you're on the school level, our numbers are way better than his. When you're looking at the district level, his numbers are better than ours. So,
when you say way better, you mean they're more accurate
More
to
accurate.
the numbers we
yes,
actually.
and he would say that he doesn't look at that. He doesn't even.
I'm just clarifying, when you
Yes,
say
so-
better.
Yeah,
you
well,
have-
our numbers
you
are more accurate per school.
Because we have data.
Well, yes, and we're looking at it, that is our purpose, is to see by school where growth is. His purpose was, and he's more trained to look at the county trends, things of that nature, and he was more accurate when you look at it as an entire county. All right, so I kind of got off track. We added the town of Bluffton section. So if you have not, some things we added here. These are two example pages. We're always adding something and improving every year. If you just, this is a great opportunity to go over this because some of you may not have heard us go over this. We break up every school by attending, by grade, and then zoned by grade. So as we go down to every neighborhood level, we're locating every student where they live and where they're zoned. And all our projections are done by zone. So we want to make sure that the zone can handle the kids that are going to that school, not necessarily those that are zoned for that school to assume there's enough room there. So then you have the projections. These are zoned. The choice effect is how we show the difference between attending and zoned. Everything's done on zone. The net transfers is what is used for that choice effect.
And did the demographer also told us that maybe we should get rid of school choice when he was here too, that if we would send everyone back to our schools, that would flush some of the overcrowdedness in our schools. Wasn't that something that he said as well?
I'm not sure of that. I would say that he would probably say, and we would say, our projections.
No offense, Robert. That's not my question. I mean, you probably would say that y'all would say something different. I just had that one question, and I just want that one question answered. That's it. Because then we start drifting off into other things, and I just don't want to do that anymore. Respectfully, thank you.
He did say that.
Okay.
The demographer did say that.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so, down here, transfers in and out, this is by school, so at Buford L, you can see where the students are transferring in from and what schools, such as at Buford L, there's 37 students in the Well Branch zone that are actually going to Buford L. And then those out, down at the bottom are the ethnicity of attending and zone. That is one thing that, since we are under the OCR agreement, they look at that to see how those are matching up to the district, and also to make sure that the attending and zone aren't too far out of whack. Some things that we added this year. So the net transfers, what I was saying, was used as a choice effect, and that's the difference of transferred in versus transferred out. So at Buford L, you see that there's 164 students that come in, there's 80 students that go out. That means there's a net transfer of 84. They're actually gaining 84 due to the choice. And that makes sense at Buford L. Buford L has special needs programs, they have Head Start, they have also Montessori programs, so it's not surprising, if you know anything about Buford L, that it's got a lot of kids coming in. And then at the top, one thing we added here was program capacity. So we have building capacity, that's the number that either the architect established or we established some time ago, and we never change that number, no matter what's going on in the building. Programmatic capacity is how the building is actually being used. When you add special needs classes, that means there's smaller classroom size, so it makes sense at Buford L, which has a capacity of 867, due to Head Start, due to special needs program, their program capacity is actually lower, 757. So that's actually how they're using the building, which shows you, if you were looking at just building capacity, it's at 54%, but how they're using it, the building, it's at 60% usage. Now, all our projections and everything we do is based on building capacity, not programmatic. Any questions on that?
Are these 45 days or 90 days?
All our numbers are based on the 45-day count of who is attending the school. So this just for Buford L, this just gives.
So what's the non-geocode mean?
That means we weren't able to locate them. We buy the address. It could be McKinney-Vento or some other reason we cannot locate the address that they gave or that was for that person. So then you look at the map at Buford L, what you can tell that each of these green dots represents a student or a cluster of students. And you can see Buford L has students coming throughout the district, which if you know Buford L, that is not surprising. So we kind of already touched on this, in the demographic sessions. What's new is we added the information about the McKibbin's report and the difference between what they, how things are done as far as projections and capacity. So some of the numbers you see, I need to do that, but so there's our projections, and if to your point, I don't think I have it on this slide. But to your point, Mr. Dowling, we do have on one of the pages the projections that we've done like over the last 5 years along with the McKibbin report, and that's on 112. Just kind of track historically how our projections have done against what actually occurred, and also how our projections look compared to the McKibbin report. So that's on 112. District-wide, consider growth on average is we're about 1.2% growth for the next 5 years. Here's kind of the big elephant in the room. This is the Bluffton cluster. That dashed line right there, that red dashed line, is after we complete the additions at May River and River Ridge. That's where our capacity will be. So what you see is that as soon as they're built, for the most part in 22, we're at 100% capacity throughout the district. So really what's that showing you, and what I would tell you is that
Throughout the district or at the cluster?
throughout the cluster, I'm sorry. Yeah,
exactly.
sorry about that. Yeah, throughout the cluster. So that's, not include, that doesn't include the mobiles, of course, though, that are at May River and River Ridge. So if you took those mobiles out, those additions we're building are really for the students that are already there today. I mean, it's not for any additional capacity, that's for kids that we already have. And so another example, two of our schools that have some of the highest growth when you go down the school level are Pritchardville and McCracken. And these are two locations where we don't have additions occurring. And McCracken, one of the good things, and one of the questions came up about, are we gonna rezone? If you remember back when we were looking at the rezoning, one of the reasons, what we were trying to do is rezone kids to places where mobiles could go. McCracken's a good example of that. Even though we're gonna be well exceeding the capacity here shortly, it has plenty of space for additional mobiles in the upcoming years. Pritchardville, on the other hand, has limited.
Are the new buildings being, added, I'm excuse me, are the new buildings additions, are they being, calculated in the new programs that are coming along as well?
You say new programs, what do you mean?
As in the, certain one of those schools have certain programs, and I was wondering if, for basically, for like as a May River has certain programs that are coming out there. The where they are built at right now, is the capacity, will those programs capacity be built in? What is the maximum amount of capacity of those programs holds? Would that be added into the add-on right now, the addition that we're doing right now, Jeff?
So, once those buildings are complete, we will add in that capacity to the buildings. As of right now, they're under construction, I think that's correct. So that additional capacity is not added in. And that's why we kind of back here on this one, the capacity in the Bluffton zone is this red. We kind of sketched in this dashed red. So after they're complete, that's where the Bluffton capacity will go to. So as of right now, no, we are not adding in any of the additions into any capacity until after they're complete. And then they will be added into the capacity for those buildings. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but I thought we were, okay, yeah. No, I answered my question, but I just thought that we were. And
if you're talking about individual programs, the additions right now at May River in particular are general classrooms. There is an addition that we will come later that will be a CATE expansion. And of course, those will be built for specific programs, and the capacities will be increased by the size of those specific programs. The additions at May River are more general classroom, general lab space. There's not a specific program they're designed for. Same thing at River Ridge, they're general classrooms.
So they will be coming and asking for additional building out there for CATE? Is that what you're saying?
No, the referendum approved an additional CATE addition at May River. We're not building that right now. You know, when we went forward with the board, we asked for permission to accelerate the design of the addition. We did not ask to accelerate the design of the CATE. So the CATE design and construction will follow the current addition that's going on at May River.
Okay, because I thought that what we said was that while we were out there, that we wanted to finish up all the building at that site and not come back to it because it would cost more. And this, that's how I remember, but not that we would have to come back and then do an additional CATE building. That's not how I remember it. So
that statement's exactly true. I mean, we did make that statement. The problem was at the time of the referendum, when we divided them into question 1 or 2, we didn't know both would pass. And so there was a pretty big push for those classroom additions. And if only question 1 passed, we would have been ready. If question 2 failed, we never brought forward the suggestion of accelerating that design because we didn't know if question 2 would pass or fail, to be quite honest. We thought if there was a chance of 1 or 2 of them failing, the chance was higher, well, the way that it was even signed, it was higher that question 1 was going to pass. It had to pass before question 2 could even be considered. I see a lot of questioning faces. Does that make sense?
To your point though, about the addition of the additional CTE at May River, that's not used as a program of choice, so is it? So only those students who already attend May River would partake in those.
If the capacity was lower, it could be. But since the capacity is
Right.
above 90%,
Right.
it isn't, the
There's
choice
no
is
room.
not, the choice is not open.
Right.
It's above 95, or I don't know what his number was in here, but.
Mr. Chairman, I have scheduling conflict with some constituents that I was unable to resolve. So since you still got a quorum, I'll have to wait. Okay.
Sorry, your glasses, your glasses, good, your glasses.
Oh, thanks.
Would you like me to continue? So another section we added was the student assignment.
Hold on, man.
Okay.
We do have a public comment, okay?
Just a question, Robert, on the new additions. Are they being calculated as program capacity growth, or are they building capacity growth?
Yes,
Well, yes, which one?
both. So if they finish, so if you look right now, let's
Let's
look
look at
at,
River Ridge, we're adding, you said just classrooms there, right?
right, yep.
So, would it be fair to assume that the number of additions those will just be strictly capacity numbers?
So,
Or will tomorrow, we'll put a new program in and all of a sudden that 1,400 capacity becomes 1,200 again?
let me get to, I'm gonna use the actual numbers of the book. 98. So River Ridge, right now, shows, well, it's got a building capacity of 1,013,
Right.
and it's got a program capacity of 1,100 right now. So actually what that's saying is that due to the way they're putting more kids in, and if you know River Ridge, that's correct. They're using things like the stage, like the cafeteria for classrooms. So they're using spaces that weren't necessarily counted as classrooms, which is upping their programmatic capacity. So when we finish the addition, it's gonna be approximately 400 students. So both of those numbers theoretically should go up by 400. But let's just say that one of those classrooms that is added is a special needs classroom, and even though it was designed to go up by 400, if it wasn't designed as a special needs classroom, that may drop it down by 8. So instead of 400, it's going up by 392
So program capacity could basically change
year to year.
every year, every
Yes.
6 months,
Yes.
depending on whatever the need of the day is.
Yes. That's why we've always been hesitant of putting it in here, because of being said we're playing with the numbers and moving up. We want to keep building capacity where it's consistent. But at the same time, we want to give you, the board, some information about how the building is actually being used and what's actually going on in it. Because we think that, because there's always been the argument that certain buildings, the building capacity doesn't reflect what's going on because they have more special needs classrooms than everybody else. And that is a true statement in some buildings. And so considering program capacity lets you see that maybe that special needs number is really bringing that number lower. And so the building, how full it is different than if you just look at building capacity.
Or in reverse, it could be made
Or
higher.
like River Ridge is an example where it's actually, its program capacity is more because they're using spaces that were never intended to be classrooms.
How does that allow for future planning, given enrollment projections?
So when you're looking at enrollment projections, our main focus is on that building capacity. Things can change year to year, but you do have to keep in consideration things like special needs classrooms and where those are needed and how they're used. Does that answer your question?
It answers my question, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Capacity is a complicated thing. We just figured the more information we can give you, the better off you are. So, attendance zones, if you'll notice in here, what we did add was to show you the areas that we have zoned, not really rezoned, but those new development, those neighborhoods that we've moved to other schools. That's the ability the board gave us, and we've been using that as much as possible. So when you see these islands, or donut holes as we call them, you'll see this is, I don't know if this is May River, or the River Ridge, but this is the elementary school zone. So in the middle of Pritchardville, you see these yellow neighborhoods that are going to Bluffton L. So that's showing you where we're doing that. You see this yellow up here in River Ridge, that's that apartment complex that we recently rezoned to go to Bluffton L. So and kind of see the impact that is having on the clusters. All right, so some other things new in the facilities section. We already talked about building versus programmatic capacity. Also, mobiles added as capacity. Our two examples, Blufftonelle, does it have a mobile? Well, if you go to the River Ridge in the book, I'm getting in too big of a hurry. So neither one of the ones that we showed, Blufftonelle has mobiles, but they're not being used as classrooms. They're being used as our enrollment center right now. So they're not counted in there. But if you look at River Ridge in your book, we have three capacities. You have building capacity, and then the capacity with mobiles. So that's showing you. So like River Ridge right now, if you just look at building capacity, it's 118%. If you look at its capacity with the mobiles that we've added included, it's only at 99% capacity. So, and then programmatic capacity usage, it's at 109 without the mobiles. So it's giving you more information.
That was a question.
Okay.
It was answered.
Oh,
So
okay.
the programmatic capacity doesn't include the mobiles.
And if you look on there, if it doesn't have the star, I know on the River Ridge it does not. That doesn't include the mobiles.
Gotcha, okay.
The other thing we added, which shows future mobile needs. So this was a chart that we showed earlier in the year, and we've included it in here. It's kind of tracking the mobile needs, and what we've also shown is programmatic versus building capacity. So the mobile needs actually change if you're looking at things in the programmatic capacity, how the buildings are being used compared to building. And just so, and it's showing the choice effect in just zones. So to your point, Mr. Smith, if you were going to take choice away, you would only be looking at the zoned. And your point of, we'll look on the building capacity number. I think I can read it. So if you just look at zoned, I think it's 112, I think, well, 122.
122.
Oh, and actually, so this is an example where choice effect, and in Bluffton, the choice effect actually helps things because the problem is in Pritchardville, for example, you have more kids going out than you do coming in. So if you remove the choice effect in Bluffton, it actually makes things worse. And so what you're showing here is we're going to need 122 classrooms in the next 5 years. If you base it on zoned, if you base it on choice effect, we only need 108 classrooms in the next 5 years.
So when you say that, basically what you're saying that the kids are in that zone, are in the zone next door, are going out of zone, are going out of zone to the next door neighbor and going to their school. Is that what you're saying?
Well, like Pritchardville, if you look on here, like River Ridge, net transfers is 60. So that means 60 kids are coming into River Ridge.
Right.
River Ridge is a school that's full, so we prefer for them not to go in there. Then you look at a school like Pritchardville, you have 158 going out. So if you take away the choice effect, and River
Right.
Ridge,
That's not my question. My question is simply this: are you saying that, in other words, us having the choice programs, you have kids from the Beaufort area that's going to Beaufort High, they're able to go to Battery Creek, and so is that helping? And that's my question. Is simple.
I don't think in the Beaufort, the northern cluster.
Right, but I'm just saying over there in the cluster that you just mentioned is the statement you just made was that having the choice in that area, in the Bluffton area, is helping, and if so, then if it's helping to the degree of kids from the neighboring school district, the neighboring area is going to another school, then we need to do that. That's a situation where the board needs to redraw lines. That's my point.
So I think we're kind of saying the same thing. So Pritchardville is an example of a school that we're concerned about growth in, and there's 158 kids that are leaving are leaving Pritchardville. And down below, you can see where they're going to. Now, the out that they're, unfortunately, the largest number of the kids in Pritchardville are going to River Ridge. So that's another school that's overcrowded. So, but then you also have schools like Bluffton L, MC Riley, Oakwood. The next one would be Oakwood or Red Cedar, and they actually do have a little more space, definitely more space than Pritchardville or River Ridge.
Does the 158 figure out of Pritchardville include the 160 whatever that the board rezoned a couple of years
No,
ago?
that's not rezoning.
That's in addition to?
That's just choice. That's just
Just
kids
choice.
that go to a different one that aren't zoned. If they're zoned, if we rezoned them, that's not a move by choice.
See, refresh my memory, but I think that,
Thank you for
was
your
it
work.
2 years ago, the board
Right.
moved, because Pritchardville was way over, and the board moved 160 kids to MC Riley and Bluffton L.
Not
It was-
quite 160, but it was over
Over
100.
numbers, over 100.
Yeah.
Moved them in the spring, and
We
in
added
August, when the
100
school
by-
year started,
Yeah.
those 100 seats were filled again with kids who weren't there the previous spring.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that happened 2 years ago. And I have to say, the board's given us the ability to create those. This is saving us right now. This is the only thing we have is our ability to rezone these areas out. And this, if we weren't able to do this, Pritchardville would be in way worse shape than it is right now. So would River Ridge. So that, and what we're seeing now, Bluffton L is getting these fast-growing areas, and we're starting to see the numbers increase faster at Bluffton L. You're actually kind of, if you look on our projections, River Ridge is kind of slowing down, and part of that is because we're taking the fast-growing areas out of River Ridge and putting them into Bluffton L, and Bluffton L is speeding up, which is exactly what we wanted to do, because Bluffton L has a little more space than River Ridge or Pritchardville. But these are all, but the problem is, and I may, if I'm talking too much, stop me. If you go look at the Bluffton cluster, by 2021, the whole cluster is at 100% capacity. That means you redistrict, it's just where do you want mobiles to go? We just need to add classrooms. And by our count, in the next 5 years, we need to add at least 100 classrooms or more, depending on how you look at it. So, and we need to focus on the areas where we can put those, McCracken being one of them. McCracken has space, MC Riley has space, Bluffton L has space. Pritchardville does not. That's one of the, Pritchardville is one of our biggest concerns, just because it's the fastest growing and doesn't have space for mobiles. Or it's running out of space for mobiles. We already have currently 10 mobile classrooms at Pritchardville. So, summary section there. You know, here we talk about the area that we have available for additional mobiles. And Carol would be mad at me if I didn't mention this, and she showed this on here, that one of the things that she, as a planner, is one of our top priorities, is we should be looking for land for new schools. We currently, the only land we have in the Bluffton area, of course, is either at Okeechobee, which already has a school on it, or at the May River campus. And as you see, we're going to need that May River campus very shortly. And then after that, we no longer have, we do not have any other land available. And when you start looking at the land available for Bluffton, it is disappearing extremely fast.
That will stop the growth though, if you put a school on that property, no?
What's that?
If you build a school on those empty properties, you won't have the growth to deal with.
In that particular property, that's correct. The problem in Bluffton, of course, though, is that it's only 30% built out, and they can build, you know, you can double the size of Bluffton if they wanted to very shortly. So that was the thing on land. So again, you know, a new school was identified by the CPRC as one of our biggest needs, and of course we've held off, but we're growing. Last year was by 400 students in Bluffton, this year by 300. So really you're talking about we should be building a new school in Bluffton every 2 to 3 years at this rate, and we are not.
I've got two questions for you. When were you, what was your plan for presenting this to the board? Because to me, it's very important that the board see this. and
That's
not
the
just
operations
operations.
committee's.
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion we should always rush stuff.
I know, like this is
But
like-
there's a policy that says it has to come through us first.
So we're gonna be prepared to present at the next board meeting. Hopefully Carol can be there and do that presentation, so.
My second question is, in the book, for
This is a
live
work session.
bursts,
It's not a board, this is a work session.
so for live bursts, do they,
I agree.
I mean, so in Beaufort County, we have only
Yes.
two hospitals, Beaufort Memorial and Hilton Head. Coastal Carolina would be considered it in Jasper County.
Correct.
But the way they determine live births, I would assume, and I just wanna be sure my assumption is correct, would be what the mother's address is at whatever hospital they go to. Whether they go to
Correct.
Charleston, Savannah,
Correct.
is that the correct way?
They are required to report to DHEC.
Yeah.
Even,
okay.
even if you were in Savannah, in a hospital in Savannah, you report to DHEC
Yeah,
where that
okay.
birth was.
Yeah, thank you, that's just what I
Um, So it's our recommendation that this should go to, move forward to the board?
Yeah, that's fine.
This is a PE, by the way, so it would be
I agree.
approving
I
a
agree,
PE.
we should, so 2-0, we,
Yeah,
with no recommendation, this just,
well, I was, actually, our recommendation that we move this forward to the board, to move to the work session. Because this is not a board, this is not a board meeting material. This is too intensive, it's a lot to go through, this is something that needs to be on another work session.
I agree, and you all can discuss that in your agenda meeting.
Exactly.
I
Tell you, Carol would love for that to happen.
Yeah, because there can be a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're well rehearsed in asking questions back. Can we rip through this
Yes, rip through it.
construction project updates?
I don't, let me grab a copy. So this is kind of the exact same thing we showed the clock at the last clock meeting. If I can find my copy.
We, 2-0, we're gonna move it forward to the full board.
So the main things there, Mr. Trivinger, I'm sure, and, you wanna,
I was gonna tell you, just for the record, I asked for it to be moved to, well, yeah, for the record, I asked for it to be, look to be moved to a work session.
But we'll decide that at the end of September.
Right. I know, I just wanted it to be notated.
all right, I don't know if you can bring this up. You know.
Construction?
Yep. So this is the format you've seen when I've done our updates in the past. The approved funding, now, this is what we've carved out for the River Ridge project based on our cost estimators estimation for River Ridge. You can see that we've approved 9.9 million, we've contracted to date 8.8 million, and we've spent $326,000. So that contracted date, of course, will go up as we buy furniture and other things, so the fact we have some space there is not a bad thing. It's actually, that one's got a pretty tight budget, to be quite honest with you. And if you look at the schedule on the next page, the thing to know, you all been out there, or some of you've been out there and see it, they've been working on foundations and plumbing and slab, and they're planning to pour the slab next week. So we should start to see the concrete slab going in next week. And then structural steel is gonna follow in March.
And you know, I have 2 questions always.
Yes, they are on budget. Yes, we are on schedule.
Great.
As far as May River, we're falling about 2 to 3 weeks behind, and that's the plan. As things go on at River Ridge, they roll right into May River. So you see, I'll say on the schedule wise, you see that their plan to pour the slab is later in February. So it's just falling a couple weeks behind. On the budget there, you see the funding is 15.7 million. Contracted to date is 11.7, so budget-wise, we're doing very well at May River, and we spent $257,000 to date. That's really just one payout from the contractor that's come in. And outside of that, the only other thing I'd say is that the parking lot is being close to paved, but the weather has kept us off. So there's no real schedule for that parking lot, so I would not say we're behind schedule, but it's been delayed recently.
So this should go to the full board.
Fine.
This goes to the full board, right?
We haven't in the
We
past.
haven't been taking the
I mean, you
construction
can.
stuff, but this,
I think the board might wanna hear that it's on budget and on schedule, except that there's the review committee, the citizen committee, if they're gonna ask that question.
Well, and
They are, but every
You
quarter,
could do it under his
Yeah,
referendum.
Dr.
every 3 months. So if you're saying you want to get regular reports, you'd have to wait 3 months for those. You may not want to do that.
Well, I was gonna say, at every board meeting, Dr. Rodriguez has been doing his referendum update.
That's what I,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
exactly what I.
and that's all great, but I think from this committee, this as a part of our committee report, we can just have them, to basically just
Yeah.
bring the report.
We can do that.
Then we can just put it in our committee report, just have it knock it out.
Schedule, not budget.
Yeah, no.
I mean, as you know, I'm always gonna ask those two questions.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Now,
So, I have a question.
yes,
So do you want this, PowerPoint in, we'll put it under operations, so when you give your committee report,
Yes, ma'am.
it'd be
That would be
available.
good.
Okay.
That would be good.
I'll be ready if you call me up there. I don't wanna see the superintendent's thunder either if he's gonna do a report after me, so.
Yeah.
Don't put me in that position.
Yeah, you don't wanna be known as a thunder stealer. Start time survey results, you know, we're skipping over the peer review revisit, because I already talked about that page. We should take a look at it and see if they're appropriate.
What was that?
We should review the
You said you
PEs,
skipped over one now?
the PE review revisit. I put that on there just so everybody would know, we should look at those PEs, make sure they come down from the strategic plan. If we can, that's something that would be really helpful to the policy committee. If we can't do it, then we can't do it. And the board can do it at the work session, but we can't do it here tonight. Start time survey results, you all have a copy of that in front of you. These are preliminary results through one week of the 2-week period.
No, we don't.
We don't have them.
He
I
didn't give it.
just sent them to the
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
committee, but I've got it.
My fault, I should have sent them on.
We'll share them.
I got one.
Okay, thank you.
Keep it down.
And this is, as I say, this is the 1 week of the 2-week time span that, as
Jim,
you could anticipate, people that feel strong and usually respond
do you
quickly.
have yours?
So you can see how many people have responded, broken down by parents, employees, high school students, 8th grade students, and Spanish language survey results. I think we got a pretty good response rate, actually, based on my limited experience with surveys. The thing that jumped out at me, and anybody else can speak to it after me, the thing that jumped out at me was most clusters, and remember, we sent this out because we realized that we could do things by cluster, it did not have to be district-wide. And the thing that jumped out at me was that the Rio Branch cluster has strong feelings that it should be the other way around. The rest of the district seems to be kind of, close on leaving it the way it is, but these are preliminary. I don't think there's, a thunderous.
And then I think also some parents probably need to, actually go out and do it too, because, I talked to a couple parents, and I've asked them, have you done it? They're like, well, what's that? I'm like, I'm sure you got it, everybody in the district has got it. They're like, oh, I don't know, where I can go, I'm like, just go to the website, but.
Yeah.
that's what-
Hopefully we'll get more responses the second week. But this is just reviewing that first week of people who were determined.
Right.
Because that first week's gonna get the people that feel strongly and are determined to get their voice in there. And as I say, I was struck, the thing that struck me was the Rail Branch is different from the rest of the district, and the board will have to decide to honor that or not honor that. If there's something else that weighs against it, then.
Also, we would also need to, do the 2 town halls as well.
Right, that's next topic.
I know, actually, that's not one topic,
Oh, we gotta talk about how we're gonna do it, right?
I know we already did, but that's fine, go ahead, that's fine.
You and I talked that in the parking lot, right, all these people, over this. So anyway, that's what jumped out at me. Earl's nodding his head.
Yeah, I'm too.
75%, all in all, prefer that the high school start first. But, you know, we'll have to get into it, you know, how much do the parents weigh, how much does their vote weigh compared to employees'
Maybe I'm
votes?
not reading this correctly, but for Beaufort High, we got 30% prefer elementary school start time first, and 62%.
That's the way it is now. Right?
No, I'm not. No, I'm talking about, that's Bluffton. I'm talking about Beaufort High, I'm talking about Bluffton.
Here's Beaufort. 56 elementary school, 44 would prefer the other.
Actually, well, we're looking at two different ones. Yeah, that's high school.
Oh, you're looking at
students.
high school students?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
looking at
Yeah, okay, let me go.
the summer.
Yeah, but okay, well,
You're looking at the students,
and where's Beaufort?
Beaufort high school students, that's what you're looking at? They would rather have the high school start first. But,
There's
you
a
know,
pretty significant disconnect when you look at it from 25,000 feet between parents and students.
Yeah, there's a disconnect, and we can't get involved with the parents, between the parents and the students.
No, yeah, but I don't know if these numbers are right. There's no way, because parents are, that this is not what the community, and I serve in this district, and this is not what parents are telling me. So what the parents are telling me matches what the students are saying. So I mean, I don't know where the survey went wrong or what's going wrong or if they're not doing it, but
Well, that's why you do surveys, because I doubt that 4,300
Exactly.
people have talked to either one of us. You know?
you're right. But
Yeah,
yeah.
probably 20 or 30, and I'm overloaded.
And what is it? When is the survey supposed to be over?
Friday,
Friday.
This Friday.
midnight Friday.
I'm going to have to extend it, and I'm going to send a letter to the churches.
I don't think you can do that as an individual board member.
Actually, this committee made the surveys. So yeah, and then this committee made the time frame on it. So I don't see why this committee can't extend the time of the surveys.
Points are valid. We did the survey, we set the time frame.
That's right.
I'm not actually in favor of doing that, but, because we have town hall meetings also. You're thinking people didn't have adequate notice on this, so calls went out to everybody, right?
I understand that, but I just wanted to make sure that we made it out, everything in our effort, even though we gave it 2 weeks. But I mean, I don't see why, even if we're gonna go on the town halls and they have the information come in, I mean, you just printing it off and say, hey, this is the latest, probably going to town, prior to going to the town halls. I mean, I don't see what's the hurry with the method is that I will actually, depending on when we start the town halls, I will actually some of the churches to have their congregations to make sure that if they want to be heard and that they would take the time out to jump online and do the surveys. I mean, you know, going into the town halls. I mean, because we still aren't going back with nothing, I'm sure, until we've done the town halls.
I think if you're gonna extend the survey, I don't think you should be, how should I say, only going to one area or one segment, i.e. the churches. I think if you're gonna extend the survey, it should be to everyone. You know, you should either send it again, but probably, I mean, I'd like to hear from Mr. Foster. Do you have any idea? I mean, we had good responses, it looks like here after 1 week, and now is it?
Most of the responses came in with just a few days.
Yeah,
And there was a
exactly.
lot.
So then everything just sort of tailing off the
Right.
second week?
I looked at Beaufort.
Yeah.
At the date we sent this, I can give you the numbers, 820 parents from the Beaufort cluster total. But that was last Friday, so I don't know what it is today.
That's not a lot. Exactly, that's a good point.
You do need to consider that this is not a scientific survey.
Exactly.
the town hall meetings won't be a scientific standpoint.
True.
So
Yeah.
it's just, they're additional data points to inform the board's discussions.
Yeah.
Now, you're saying that you're gonna have 2 town hall meetings, you saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay, where you gonna have it at? Because you ain't gonna be able to reach out everybody. I would suggest that you schedule a meeting in your district.
No, what this committee what this committee is scheduled to do
I understand.
is to have one town hall meeting north of the Broad, one south of the Broad. And as a parent, if that's a concern of yours, then your job is to get to one of those town halls. Because
I understand what you're saying, but you're not gonna get everybody to come to that meeting. I have a meeting at after ACE meeting tomorrow up in my area, and I'm gonna be discussing this. So that's the best way you can get your parents, because all those parents are not gonna be able to attend the town hall meetings. That's all I'm saying to you as a board member, if you want to get the message out.
well, that's fine. Yeah, some of them don't attend board meetings, but that's the reality that you have to have.
I have a question. The 1,600 employees and the 4,300 parents, are they overlapping there, or is it a total of 5,900?
There probably is some overlap.
There is overlap, right? So you would say that maybe.
The difference is that the parents were contacted as parents through Power School. Basically, that's the way you're done there. The district employees are contacted through their district email address.
Is it possible that they both, on either one, they respond?
If they responded from the same
one.
ISP address, they only get one.
Okay,
It would have to be.
so there's no way,
different
there's no duplication of.
There would have to be a different address.
Okay.
Which could happen.
Sure, absolutely.
But
I mean,
then they have two
you've got a
hats.
Gmail address and a work address, then.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have 2 hats on it. I don't think it's enough to skew the results.
No, I'm just,
Yeah, I know what
you know, the numbers are large. I mean, 1,600 staff.
Right, and that's,
It's a third of the adults.
It's gonna take a lot to move those percentages,
It's gonna
especially
take a
with
lot to
parents
move
with
it.
4,000 something.
and as you say, this is not a scientific survey, it's not gonna stand up to scientific scrutiny. Well, but no survey is ever accurate unless it agrees with what you think.
Well, that's not true either. That's
That was
not.
tongue in cheek.
Okay. I was saying that's kidding. No, that shit is not accurate either.
I studied surveys for quite a bit in grad school. They could be manipulated a lot of different ways.
Jay, when did you pull these numbers? Are they current or are they for months?
Last Friday.
Okay.
No, actually, my mistake, Monday morning. Monday morning.
Yeah, I'm really not feeling strongly we should extend the deadline, just because I think we should wrap this up, but another week probably won't hurt. I mean, it's not like we're up against the deadline.
That's my.
Can we do that? Extend it another week? Can you send out?
Certainly, you just have to send another set of communications.
Yeah, it's not like we're up against a drop dead deadline. And then we have to schedule the town hall meetings. As I said, you and I talked about it out in the parking lot, but for the folks that weren't in the parking lot, as you said, the thought is have one town hall north, one town hall south.
Rachel, what is the number, or somebody tell me what the number is, the parents, total parent respondents?
It is 4,300.
4,300?
Yeah,
Well, since Monday morning, it's gone 4,349, so.
Yeah, very little,
Not a lot of money.
Yeah, I hear
which
you.
is kind of what we thought.
Yeah, I mean, if you're motivated, you're gonna do
Good
it.
answer. Exactly.
And it's a very short survey, so if you get it, you can go to your phone, it'll be done in 60 seconds.
Extremely short, it's like a 2-minute survey. But, if you feel strong about it, there's no reason not to do it. So extend it another week.
Right.
And the town halls, we're gonna have one north, one south,
One north and one south.
and we're gonna be arranging those.
Right.
because the survey was in my court, the town halls are in your.
All right, yeah, so, I imagine maybe Wednesday or Thursday.
We need to have some sort of structure with those.
Yeah.
We can't just,
Notification.
Yeah.
we can't just, I mean, there needs to be some structure to get at. Unless you're just gonna have an open mic, just let people come up and talk.
Yeah, you have to notification, you have to have notification.
We'll do news releases.
As we see from the survey results, 2 weeks wasn't enough notification, so you probably have to schedule the town halls out for a couple of weeks,
Okay.
based on.
That's true, that's true.
Yeah, right.
That's true.
When does this have to be back into district
When does,
survey? When is the?
oh, the Friday's the deadline, so we'll have final numbers next Monday.
Okay.
Midnight Friday, I think is what it is.
My suggestion, and I'm just really, is that each cluster has a town hall, because 2 town hall meetings is not gonna benefit people folks.
Plus, you're looking at it by cluster as to how you wanna change it. I mean, really, right?
Well,
So
what-
then if you're having, seems like.
Well, there's some merit to what Mr. Campbell was saying,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you've got strong feelings apparently in the Whale Branch cluster. If the
Right.
northern cluster meeting is in Beaufort High School, that's a long way to go.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, actually, this body was going to, this body was tasked with that. The whole school board was not tasked with that. So now, every single board member taking it out and going to be in their cluster, then now you've taken it out of this body's hand and you're putting it out, you're giving it to every single school board member. So there are three people on the operations committee. All 3 people will go in here and go in here. Everyone on the northern side, how the parents feel. And we go here on the south side, how the parents feel, and bring it back and report it to the board. That's what we're tasked with. So when you talk about getting in individual clusters, then now you're talking about it being a board action. This committee was tasked with that, and this committee decided as a committee. We weren't going out as in our different areas, because we didn't bring anything to the body, to the body yet, to the full board yet. We said that we would have a town hall north, we would have a town hall south. And the people from this committee will go to the north one, and here the parent had to say north. People from this committee would go to the south, and everyone had to say south. And that we would bring it back to the body. But what they're proposing is something different. They're proposing it from the board, from the board's eye view, not from this committee's eye view.
You know, maybe we're not hearing each other, because it seems like from this study so far, after 1 week, it looks like Whale Branch has strong preference to flip, right? Okay, so therefore, if you go to Beaufort, let's say you decide you're gonna have your 1 meeting north of the Broad at Beaufort,
Right,
and all 3 of you go, that's fine.
right.
I don't think you're gonna hear what's really come out in this survey. And-
That's not true, because if parents can go from a basketball game from Bay River High School to Well Branch, then the parents can come from Beaufort High School to from Well Branch to Beaufort High School, and that one cluster meeting, and say, hey, this is how I feel. I mean, I don't see what the problem is. If how they feel they want to be heard, then they will come to the local meeting. I mean, that is the task that this committee was given the task. That's how we saw fit to do our task. If you want to have cluster meetings, by all means, no one is stopping y'all from having cluster meetings and seeing how your personal cluster feel. You as a board member for that area, you can bring back to the full board when we discuss it. Hey, I had a town hall of my own, and this is how my cluster felt. There's no harm in that. But based upon this committee, this is how we felt. It will be feasible to bring back information, because all this is gathering information. This is nothing to say, hey, this is it. This is saying, when we went out there to south of the Broad, this is what we heard. We went to north of the Broad, this is what we heard. But that, once again, that has not having to do this. having these meetings have not stopped y'all from saying you can have a personal meeting with District 3 and see how they feel. We didn't say that. If you wanna have it, by all means, have it.
Couple of things. One, all the board is invited to these town halls.
Right.
The full board is. The point is valid that the point was to be cluster specific. I get that point now. And if we have it north of the Broad, you're gonna have to ask each speaker, what cluster are you from? And you're gonna have to get their response lined up with that cluster. So we'll have to do that. Otherwise it gets diluted. The people, you don't want the people from Beaufort having an effect on the people from Whale Branch. That's the whole point, is that we didn't want that, right? So
Right.
we're gonna have to ask them, what cluster are you from? Are you a parent, are you a student? And we still have the issue of how we weigh that against the survey results, because we're gonna have to ask them, did you respond to the survey? Because if they responded to the survey, then what they say in the town hall is duplicative and we can't count it. So there's a bunch of issues. Maybe,
Well, not really, because some people don't do that. If you have a strong come out, when I would never forget, when we first made this decision to stay in school start time, people came out in droves. So, my thing is, if people come out in droves again, and they're saying, hey, we want it changed, then there's not a question. I mean, there's not a question about it. But when people don't come out, when people say, hey, they come out and say, hey, we're good, then they're okay with it. Start time was a big issue then, and to me, from my side, people are still a big issue to people. So therefore, they come out in droves, then.
yeah, that's not debatable. Start time's a hot issue. But
How will you be able to separate?
the survey is easy to respond to, getting to a town hall may not be. So there's a lot of things you gotta consider. And maybe we should have the full board tell us if they want the meetings to be cluster or.
I don't think the full board tells us. If
Oh, no, the full board can tell us.
no, I said I don't think the full board needs to give us the direction of when they ask us to get stuff done, then it's our job to get things done. I mean, and so I mean, at this point, I mean, sorry, you said that you want to let every person, every cluster have their own meeting. That's fine. That's what you want to do. So then I don't need to waste time and start and say we can have a meeting on this and on South End and North End.
Yeah, I don't know, I have.
But
We have other people who made a valid point of clusters. I haven't thought it through yet, so I don't know.
Well, your location would be a topic to consider. You're gonna have one in north and one south. Where would your north be and where would your south be? If it's just geographically, then probably your most central high school would be Battery Creek. And if you did it geographically, your most central high school would be Bluffton. But then you have issues of people who live on St. Helena, people who live in Dale, who say my opinion is not being reflected because I had to go farther than people who live in the cluster where you had to be.
Yeah, that's another.
Let me say,
There's no good way to do this. I'm just trying to.
when the committee should bring the recommendation, the information back to the board.
Yeah.
And the board decide
Right.
how many town hall we have. That's the way it's been done before, because you can, and like he said, people are not gonna come all the way from Dale and Sheldon to Battery Creek for this. I can tell you that right now, I know that. And that's the reason why me and Mr. Dawson have a meeting in our community. We got a meeting in Big State tomorrow night. So, that's all I'm gonna say.
So what do you think? Give the board a chance to weigh in on it?
I've heard my decision. If they want to have, they want to have every member go out and meet with their district and their cluster, that's fine. And then where do we go from there? Back at square one, where do we go?
Same place we would have gone, it's just 2 meetings, that's a whole different thing. Because even with 2 meetings, we would have to ask them, what cluster are you from? Right?
Yeah, but how do we make that a part of our report? When we report this to the board?
Well, we have to get it on the agenda.
Versus us three going to 2 meetings, when we come back together.
Well, it wouldn't be us three, we were gonna invite the full.
I mean, I'm sure, but the full board was not responsible the full board was not tasked with the responsibility to come back and say, hey, what is your recommendation? Hey, what did you come up with? That wasn't the full board responsibility.
Well, I'd rather have the full board there, because I don't want the full board getting my interpretation of what I heard the people say. I'd rather have them there to hear it themselves, and draw their own conclusions.
Alright, well, I tell you what, that's
But
what
that's a whole nother, that's a different issue,
and that's
we're
what they
gonna
want.
invite the full board.
That's what they want.
But we gotta get the full board to tell us what they want.
And then that's what they want, that we're gonna, they can have, every person have their own cluster meeting.
They could. And maybe we should just say, we're reporting on the survey results, like Earl said, and then if the board tells us we want you to do cluster meetings, or we don't want you to do north and south, maybe that should be, but that wouldn't be till the work session. Good with that? You live with that?
That's fine.
I'm just trying to find a middle road.
I just don't see how the plan change over overnight, you know. It comes to,
Because they made
if
a
you
good
ask me to do a
point.
job,
They made a good
if you
point.
ask me to do my job, let me do the job because of the fact that 3 people were tasked with something. And the 3 people were supposed to come back and report what they got.
Right, I did
That's
the
about-
survey, you did the town halls, John didn't do either one.
Right,
So it was 2 of us.
right, okay. Right. But at the end of the day, all 2 of us are on a 3-man committee.
I get you.
Right.
The survey we did, now it's the town halls are yours. But,
Well, now the town hall is boards now. That's about.
well, they made a good point though, didn't they?
Yeah, man, no problem. I have no problem with it. No
I
problem.
agree with you. They
I
made
don't
good
have a
point.
problem with you guys doing it, it's just you've got to think, this whole idea was cluster specific. And so if you're having a town hall, you got, so that really influences your town hall results, or whatever you wanna call them, because, it seems like what stood out so far on the survey is the results from, Willbranch, exactly. So,
I think it's a valid point, that's all I'm saying.
No problem. We can do clusters. If everybody do clusters and we just,
Well,
where everybody
that's fine,
clusters,
that's
it's
fine,
fine.
I'll do it, but we're not just gonna take these 2 people.
right.
It's done.
No, no,
Motion adjourned.
I just,
No, that's a good point.
yeah.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Okay.